I'm Peter Lee, a Singaporean scholar of Peranakan descent, Chinese with a dash of Malay. I'm off on a new journey, searching for untold histories. This is so beautiful. It shows all the people that came through here. You could not use fake money, and you had to be nice to your servants. To explore how 4 distinct kingdoms rose and fell. On the Japanese Isles and the Korean Peninsula. Creating unique cultures and identities. Look at this. That still resonate today. Everything is based on really old designs. So the past and present all mixed up together. I'm in Japan, one of the world's top economies and cultural giants. That's also known as one of the safest places in the world, with law-abiding citizens and one of the lowest crime rates. But over 400 years ago, there were more guns here than in any other country on Earth. In the hands of the nation's iconic warriors, the samurai. To find out more, I'm meeting modern practitioners of the traditional discipline of Hojutsu. This is an old samurai art, and I would never have expected the use of a gun. There's a really strong smell of sulfur, and you combine that with the boom and crackle. It's quite an overwhelming experience. These sharpshooters have 30 minutes to fire 13 rounds for a shot at the Portugal Cup, a competition named after Portuguese explorers who first brought guns to the nation in 1543. We have here an old master, and he's very patiently going through the motion of loading his shot. Takashi Aoki has been a practitioner for almost half of his 80 years.
これは火縄式っていう申しまして、木綿のロープに火をつけて、それで点火するような装置ですね。引き金を引くとこれが落ちるっていう。各大名の、主力武器が鉄砲だった。次の弾を込めるまでに時間がかかる。それを克服するために大人数で撃つっていう形を取ったんだろうと思います。
When these weapons first arrived, Japan was in a constant civil war that had lasted close to 100 years. And over the next decade, its blacksmiths copied and manufactured over 300,000 guns to arm the battling warlords. Luckily, laws for antique weapons are more relaxed here, so I can handle them.
はい、それでいいです。
But instead of real gunpowder, I'm using cornstarch. So fill up the flash pan and then use the edge of this little flask to flatten it. And when everything is perfect, you pull the trigger. It's really heavy. My arms are killing me. It's about 4 kilos, and I'm so near the sound of it when that boom. I mean, how do they not go deaf? Firearms like these transformed Japanese warfare in the 16th century. To find out what happened next, I'm in the city of Nagoya. birthplace of the nation's most celebrated military commanders. I'm at the grounds of the 400-year-old Nagoya Castle. Doesn't it just look magnificent? There are people in period costume entertaining tourists with their fancy capes and samurai style. Konnichiwa.
よう参った。お主はピーターか。
はい。
わしは織田信長である。
豊臣秀吉。
Oh.
徳川家康である。
You guys look amazing. What are you doing here?
我らは400年前から蘇ったもののふ集団。
Ah.
わしら3人は若き頃から共に戦をし、この日の本の平和に貢献した。
The leader of the group is Oda Nobunaga, Japan's first unifier.
織田信長。わしは1534年から1582年まで生きたんじゃ。わしは戦で負けて命を落としてしまう。いわゆる革命者であったがゆえに強気な性格が今でも伝えられておる。
The next unifier was Toyotomi Hideyoshi.
太閤豊臣秀吉。わしは信長様亡き後、この戦乱の世がいろいろと戦が各地で起きておったんだ。その意志を継ぎ、この国をまず整えたものがわしと言われておる。さりながら数々の失敗をし、結果として徳川殿に全て整えられたものとされておるわな。
And that left you to be the ultimate victor.
ほうじゃ、わしは何もしておらんぞ。そんなことはない。
そんなことはない。
そんなことはない。そんなことない。
So basically, without the three of you, we wouldn't have Japan today.
そうじゃ。
So who killed the most people?
わしは誰一人殺しとらん。嘘つけ。
嘘じゃ。
三英傑。
I love their showmanship. This is history live. We shouldn't really think of it as just a very serious subject. We should be having fun and feel connected to the past. Japan's last great military commander, Tokugawa Ieyasu, was born in 1543 to the Matsudaira clan, who faces a powerful enemy to their west, the Oda. To survive, his father makes an alliance with their neighbors, sending his son Ieyasu as living collateral. But things don't go to plan. On the way, he's captured by his enemies, the Oda clan, as a bargaining chip to force Matsudaira's surrender. But the reply from his father is unexpected. To go ahead and kill my boy, to prove just how loyal an ally I am. A genius stroke that saves the young captive's life. Fast forward to 1600. The 58-year-old Tokugawa Ieyasu, now a seasoned clan leader, is facing his make-or-break moment in the Battle of Sekigahara, where he leads an invading army of over 70,000 troops against a roughly equal force. It's neck and neck, but Ieyasu is prepared, having bribed key members of his enemy faction, who gradually turn, causing others to flee. The events go down in history as one of Japan's greatest field battles, and saw Tokugawa Ieyasu proclaimed shogun, Japan's supreme commander. But to make peace last, he needed to control his people and their movements. This is the Arai Way Station, sort of a highway stop where you could eat, bathe, and stay for the night. But before proceeding further, you had to pass through this magnificent gate towards the Arai checkpoint. Inside, passage was by no means guaranteed. This would have been the office where travelers and their goods would have been inspected. We have officials doing the interrogation, plus these rather fearsome soldiers here. Guns, women, Injured people and dead bodies were not allowed to pass without proper documentation. They were very strict. The Arai checkpoint was just one of 53 way stations dotting the Tokaido Road to monitor travelers. The common classes, including artisans, farmers, and merchants, were discouraged from traveling as part of strict rules designed to maintain order and stability. So you had to have a very good reason or be very important to travel. Those allowed could continue along Japan's most important road, which still lives on today, just in noisier form than 400 years ago. There goes the famous bullet train traveling down Japan's most densely populated travel corridor called the Tokaido. While the Tokaido Shinkansen train now links to Tokyo in under 3 hours, the 500-kilometer journey back then took several weeks on foot. This is the old Tokaido Road. So quiet and peaceful now, lined by these ancient Japanese cedars. In the old days, it would have been a busy thoroughfare, though, full of travelers on foot and lucky lords carried on palanquins. The new shogun forced all regional lords to travel to the capital every 2 years, keeping them busy and the Tokugawa clan in power. But the winds of rebellion were blowing down south, stirred up by new arrivals from Europe. I'm tracing the history of Japan's Tokugawa Shogunate that unified the nation in the 17th century and maintained peace through an iron authority over commoners and regional lords alike. But a dangerous new influence was spreading, carried aboard foreign merchant vessels. I'm in the city of Hirado, at an old Dutch trading post that's now a museum. Giving me a tour is its director, Yoshiharu Okayama.
こちらがオランダのリーフデ号で400年前に日本に初めて来たオランダの船です。
The first visits by the Portuguese in the mid-16th century were closely followed by British and Dutch traders half a century later, who brought with them exciting new goods like this armor.
これもともとオランダ製でオランダから輸入したものを日本でアレンジしてます。
It's really a nice hybrid. The helmet and the kind of collar looks sort of completely Dutch, but their elements have clearly been adapted in Japan.
そうです。肩当てとかその草摺り。
Would this actually have been worn?
使うよりもこれは飾る用、コレクション用として作ったものです。
And with Tokugawa rule ending civil wars, local lords could look to other matters, like their personal style.
これは甲冑の上に羽織る衣装なんですね。
I know this very well. It's a jacket made of Indian chintz, also called a kalamkari. Made in India, exported to Japan, and made into this samurai garment worn over armor. It is really splendid.
日本の武将たちはこういったアジアのデザインというのは非常に好みまして、個性を出すためにこういった目立つような衣装を作るのが流行っていたわけなんですね。
So from warriors to fashionable gentlemen.
そうです。
Japan enjoyed free-flowing trade with Europe in the early 17th century, a period whose impact still lives on. To see how, I'm visiting a sweet shop that boasts a 500-year history called Tsutaya. Toshiyuki Matsuo is showing me how they make a local delicacy called Casados, with a recipe his family have kept for 24 generations.
昨日焼いたカステラなんですけど、この卵の黄身につけていきます。染み込まないようにするのがポイントですね。
I see. Castella is this wonderful Portuguese cake. The one characteristic is the egg yolk. So it's a day old because it needs to be dry.
そうですね。大航海で硬くなったカステラを平戸についた方たちがこうやって食べると美味しいですよって伝わったのが僕カスドスだと考えています。
Next, the pieces of cake are dropped into a pot of boiling syrup.
This is like deep frying it in sugar water.
そうですね。よくねこれサラダに使ってるんじゃないかと言われるんですけど、油は一切使ってないんですよね。
Yeah, I can smell the syrup and the egg. This really reminds me of desserts we have back home in Southeast Asia. A lot of egg yolk and very sweet, and this all comes from Portuguese influence.
And after it's cooled comes the magic.
This is such a wonderful idea. An eggy cake rolled in more egg and dipped in more sugar.
With that, the Casados is ready.
So beautiful. You'd think that after being soaked in syrup and then rolled in sugar that it'd be so sweet, but it isn't. It's soft and fluffy on the inside and crunchy on the outside. It's a perfect combination. I love how local people adapted novel ingredients and recipes to make them their own. So much so that many today may not realize the foreign origins of their favorite dish or dessert. History is awash with such a mishmash of influences, and uncovering these ties is always exciting.
European ships are welcomed by some local rulers, but also bring problems for the central government in the form of missionaries who teach commoners and samurai alike of a religion contesting the authority of the Tokugawa Shogunate. In 1637, close to 40,000 of them take up arms to protest high taxes. The Tokugawa shogun responds by sending in 120,000 troops. But when the rebels hold themselves up in the nearby castle, they call for the aid of the Dutch and their cannons. The uprising was quashed, but the fallout saw Japan close its borders to Westerners, who were banned from Japanese soil, except in the city of Nagasaki.
That is Dejima, which literally means exit island. It's separated from the mainland by this narrow channel of water, and you can see the curve of the embankment. There's a legend that when the then Tokugawa shogun was asked how the island should be built, he responded by unfurling his fan.
For over 2 centuries, this was Japan's only point of contact with the West. Many of the structures were warehouses for imported silk, cotton, and sugar. And merchants from the Netherlands, the only European nation allowed to remain, were also forced to live here, cut off from the rest of Japan.
The Dutch modified these Japanese buildings with the green railings and window frames and added glass as well, a lovely mixed style.
Inside the home of the Kapitan, or chief trader, we can get an idea of life at the time.
Wow. I love the tatami floors, but the objects come from everywhere. There were Dutch trading posts in Africa, in India, in Southeast Asia, and they brought their things. It represents the kind of international lifestyle traders had at that time.
And a highlight of their social calendar were banquets.
What a splendid feast. One thing the Dutch always had on their cargo lists was wine. A meal like this would have been prepared for a special occasion, like Christmas, or to entertain the local elite. Japanese dignitaries were said to be impressed by the novelty of everything they saw. This is all part of work to increase trade and profits.
While exchanges with the West continued in limited fashion, it was disrupted in the mid-17th century when Japan ran out of silver and copper to pay for their purchases. To trace what happened, I'm in the hills near the town of Arita, where in 1616, the discovery of a fine white clay led to their very own export product to replace silver and copper. A record of how Japan created a new trading commodity lies here at the local shrine, where the rise of a new art is celebrated, not in the usual stone features, but in ceramics.
Porcelain making originated in China over 1,000 years ago, and it was a Korean craftsman called Yi Sam-pyong, enshrined here as Kanagai Sanbei, who is credited with bringing porcelain making to Japan.
Kanagai Sanbei was the adopted name of an artisan from the Korean peninsula. He was forcibly removed to Japan and said to have led the nation's drive into porcelain making from here.
This extraordinary old kiln runs all the way up under this hill, a so-called dragon design based on Chinese models introduced via Korea. It's such a clever idea. Porcelain needs to be fired at high temperatures, and this shape makes good use of how heat flows up to be able to make many pieces in one go. It's the factory-scale production of its time.
The advent of Japanese porcelain making coincided with wars in China that disrupted the supply for worldwide demand. To see how they capitalized on the opportunity, I'm visiting one of over 100 local kilns that produce Arita ware today. Giving me a pottery lesson is designer and next in line to the family business, Chika Morokuma.
Is this a traditional design?
This is original for us.
Okay.
Yeah. ここの窯の人気の柄になります。
It's very elegant. It seems simple, but you know, something maybe I can try and do.
Okay, yes. 手に取ってもらって、
Hold it up.
はい。土っぽい色をしている絵の具なんですけど、これを1300度の温度で窯で焼いたら鮮やかな青になります。
It's very beautiful.
Last one.
Okay.
Finished. Yay!
Final messy drawing.
次は色を入れていきます。同じ絵の具なんだけど、こっちの方が水分量が多いです。
Much more watery than the previous one.
はい。
First flower done. Looks like a big smudge with a big...
次は葉っぱを塗りましょうか。
After that, there's one last touch to go.
ちょっと重たいんですけど、人差し指を出してもらって、それでここの縁の表面を軽くちょんちょんって叩きながら。難しいですよ。
I'm trying to center the plate. The technique is just to tap whichever side you think is sticking out too much. It takes a professional 4 taps, but it's moving so fast. This is impossible.
With some help, the bowl is spinning. And it's time for the final flourish.
仕上げあとはこういう風なイメージですね。血だけこう赤に 塗っていくような形になります。
It's very beautiful. I love this combination. Yeah, I like this part. So that's it.
Yeah.
Wow, looks really
終了しまし
nice.
た。
So it needs to be fired at 1,300 degrees.
And the result of this process is a dazzling array of all shapes and colors.
A wonderful treasure trove. There's an element of fun in the designs. I love this combination of old and new.
The vibrant creations proved a hit. And by the end of the 17th century, it's estimated some 2 million pieces of Arita ware were sold worldwide, heralding great affluence to come for the nation. By the 18th century, the Tokugawa Shogunate had ruled over Japan for over 100 years. With its warring clans pacified, the nation experienced an enduring stability that allowed Edo, today's Tokyo, to grow into the world's largest city with over 1 million residents. Its economy expanded to enrich its people as never before. To see what the newly affluent spent their money on, I'm visiting a craftsman who's keeping an old tradition alive. Yukio Ishizuka is the 4th generation master of a kimono dyeing workshop that's been in operation for over 100 years.
There's a glue that's being very carefully applied over a stencil. It's sort of a material to block out a pattern. And the design is just made from little dots. This is incredible.
Known as Edo Komon, or small patterns, this style is full of hidden meaning.
Okay, so it's not a floral pattern.
日本では大根役者という言葉がありまして、大根役者を下ろせ下ろす江戸時代のシャレですね。
So it's a pattern that comes from a pun. Who would have thought you could make a beautiful design out of that? Afterwards, the cloth is dyed in a single color that's purposely muted.
遠目で見て無地に見えますけど、しかし近くへ来て見ると、お、すごい島の着物だ。特に江戸の人たちはそれで自慢してたんです。表に出さない美しさ、それが粋に通じるところがある。
This distinctly Japanese style, called iki, came about because ordinary citizens were forbidden from dressing above their station. I love how wanting to show off your wealth, but not being able to, gave rise to such an ingenious solution. The concept of iki, or understated refinement, still lives on in a preference for subdued tones and simplicity over ostentatious adornment. It wasn't just fashion that thrived in the world's largest city. Art was also undergoing a reinvention. I'm visiting an old printing workshop that has produced some of Japan's most famous images.
The glue is to bind the pigment and also to prevent it from soaking into the wood. And then I just mix everything. Ah. It's actually quite a nice feeling to do this. I have to clip them between both fingers, like so I can place it very carefully at the corners and rub.
But I'm not done yet. The process is repeated with different boards and colors. Wow. The final step. I'm doing the outlines now. 1, 2, 3. Wow. Look at this. It's not really aligned very well, but it's helped me really understand how this is made. Mokuhanga, or woodblock printing, evolved as a way of making multiple copies of a single artwork. While master printer Noriyasu Soda shows me how it's done properly, proprietor Yukiko Takahashi sheds light on how the 150-year-old business works.
絵師の描いた絵というのは、そのまま板に貼り付けてしまいますので、そして彫りますからそこで消滅してしまいます。私どもの仕事は絵師、彫り師、摺り師、三者の分業ですので、その3人の人たちを束ねる版元というのがいます。
How difficult were they to produce? Was this a very expensive affair, for example?
非常にまとまったお金が必要。それが 100% 売れればいいんですが、売れないこともありますから、ちょっとリスキーかなと思います。
This is such a famous image, a real treat to be able to see how it comes together, the power of the movement and the stillness of Mount Fuji. It's really a masterpiece. Hokusai's Great Wave was one of a series of 36 views of Mount Fuji, tempting Edo's residents with another increasingly accessible pastime, travel and sightseeing. And its wide reach was down to the ease of replication and affordability. They say you could buy one of these prints for the price of a bowl of noodles at the time. Now that's the real spirit of popular art. Tokyo's unprecedented growth in the 18th and 19th centuries filled the city with a hustle and bustle that lasts until today. To show me a slice of life in Edo's fast lane is veteran chef of 60 years, Shinkichi Mitsugi. And this is how sushi was originally made, much larger than we're used to seeing. One finger.
お水をいっぱい使うとご飯が美味しくない。いかに水を少なくやって握ってお客様に出すかがプロフェッショナル。
So that creates an even layer of water so that the rice doesn't get stuck.
で、こちらでご飯。
Okay.
こうやって持って、それで大丈夫。はい。はい。
It's surprising how big appetites were 200 years ago.
Stop.
Oh, stop. Okay.
で、わさび。
So, a little bit of wasabi from in its finger. Just
Wasabi.
rub it, and then.
で、3本指を。3フィンガー。
3 fingers.
はい、そうです。で、くっつける。ひっくり返す。ワン、ツー。ひっくり返して、ワン、ツー。はい、それでこう。はい、OK。
So it's a bit lopsided and really imperfect compared to the masters, and much bigger than the normal sushi we have.
昔のお寿司はだいたい50グラム。今のお寿司は20から15グラムぐらいですね。
So it's more than double.
全部大きいお寿司だったんです。要は江戸の人たちは地方から集まってきた職人さんが生活してたから行商でもって売ってる天ぷら、うなぎ、寿司を買い食いしてたわけですね。
So this was kind of a simple workman's meal.
そうですね。
This sushi that appeared in Edo 200 years ago was a forerunner of the dish loved across the world today. And finally, it's time for me to sample why it caught on.
どうぞ召し上がってください。
Thank you. Itadakimasu.
はい。
Here goes. Yeah, it's a much heartier version. Simple flavors, absolutely delicious. The Edo style is no rules, so I'm using my hands. It's the best way to eat sushi. Making a mess, but it's good.
Sushi was a meal to go for busy townspeople. But the lasting peace didn't benefit everyone. The samurai nobles were left largely unemployed, leading to a fascinating pastime. While Japan experienced a golden age during the Tokugawa Shogunate, its samurai fighters were bereft of their traditional role. A rally to their pride came with the spread of Kendo, meaning way of the sword. The practice of samurai swordsmanship, not for killing, but sport.
This is just the warm-up, and I'm already exhausted. And the kids, they don't even look tired.
While the students move on to practice bouts, I'm getting some much-needed coaching from fellow student and beginners instructor, Miho Miyazaki.
おへその前で左手で右手は添えるだけ。まっすぐです。相手のここ。そうそうそうそう。で、足は右足が前、左足が後ろ。で、左足のかかとは受け。いつでも前に行けるように。ベリーグル。
Women and girls have been active in this national sport for 50 years and make up about a quarter of its participants today.
中指からここの間で当たった時に一本になります。ここが一番切れるところとされてるんですよね。で、打つ時は面。
面。
まっすぐ。そうそうそうそう。
面。
Men indicates a strike to the head, but there are other targets.
小手。どう？じゃあ小手を打ってみましょう。
小手。That was a forward slice on the wrist. 小手。You need to keep the sword down and pull back so you get a good slice as well. 小手. Yeah, that's quite gruesome.
And lastly, a chop to the torso with a twist of the blade.
I see. Yeah. Do.
Okay.
And in a bout, everything has to come together.
斬新と言って当てた後ですね。例えばこのまま転んじゃったら一本にはならない。礼に始まって礼に終わるというふうに言われていますので、勝ってもガッツポーズはしてはいけないですし、負けても相手に対して敬意を払って必ず礼で終わります。
Kendo is a traditional children's sport here. Head of this dojo, Master Junji Hakoda, tells me why school kids make up roughly half of its practitioners.
私が子供の頃はクラスでもですね、半分は剣道をやってた時代がありました。
What is it about Kendo that makes it such good training?
物事に対して諦めない精神、そして考えをぶらさない剣道をやるとだんだん身についてまいります。
Japan's national institutions, like the police, also use Kendo to train their officers' bodies and minds. But my experience wouldn't be complete without a real bout with a fitting opponent. The winner is the best of 3.
I found that really challenging. You can't really see under the mask. I knew he was going to make mincemeat out of me, and he did. He was so good and very fast. There's so much warmth here despite the seriousness of the match. And I think that's because the emphasis is on the heart.
While Japan had enjoyed peace for over 200 years, the threat of war looms once again in 1853, when 4 so-called black ships sail into Edo Bay. The Americans had arrived. They make a show of fearsome firepower. And the squadron commander, Matthew C. Perry, issues an ultimatum: that Japan remove its ban on Westerners and open up to trade with America. A tactic that works. But the presence of foreigners sparks resentment that the Tokugawa's enemies use to rally together an opposing army. They march onto the capital in 1868, surrounding Edo Castle in a bloodless siege, putting an end to the 264-year-old Tokugawa Shogunate. At the heart of the city, renamed Tokyo by the new government that very same year, still lies the remains of Edo Castle, an old symbol that's increasingly capturing the imagination of the Japanese people.
Wow. These are great covers.
そうですね。こちらが私が作った江戸城再建っていう漫画です。
Beautiful.
はい。こっちが実際の原稿になります。はい。
Seisaku Kurokawa is a manga artist with a big dream.
Oh yes, so these are the existing foundations that we see now. And this is your hero.
はい。主人公はデベロッパーですね。お城が大好きな、城マニアですね。はい。日本一でかいって言われていた江戸城を作りたいという夢を持っていて。
The story shows him overcoming many real-world issues for building work to begin and also afterwards.
作ってる場面を一般の方々に見ていただくと。建設中も観光地にしないとっていうことですね。
No, actually, that is really good conservation practice. You know, the process is as important as the outcome.
And finally, the seemingly impossible becomes reality.
エドキャッスルです。
Oh, wow.
お城はこのアングルが一番かっこいいって言われてます。
Why did you pen a series like this? Do you share the hero's dreams?
はい、私も江戸城の再建を心から願ってます。もう世界の各都市にはランドマーク的なシンボルが必ずあるんですけども、東京の首都には何もないんですよね。やっぱり一つ作りたいなと。それも東京のど真ん中に。そういう人々、今は非常に多いと思います。
While there are no official plans to resurrect Edo Castle just yet, the passion it ignites in the Japanese people is recognition of its pivotal role in history. After the fall of the Tokugawa Shogunate, Japan made a 180-degree turn from shunning the West to actively embracing and emulating them. Crucial to this were the bustling cities and educated public founded in the Edo era. And you could say that the existential challenge of how to navigate change while keeping to tradition is what makes modern Japan such a unique presence in today's world. A nation of contradictions, brazenly modern and forward-looking, yet with a deep-seated pride in their heritage and ways. Japan is an international dynamo whose current identity is still evolving as it strives to bridge its past and future.